If you've been in business for even a short time, you know that as companies grow and their markets evolve, there are only two constants: change and choices. How companies approach decision making, the structure, the culture, the process, is often more important than any single decision that is made. And the organizations that are best prepared to constantly confront choices and remain objective and decisive in their decision making, they're most likely to distance themselves and really stand out from the competition. So at our firm, National Diversified, we've observed an interesting organization approach to decision making, and that has served some companies who have adopted it very, very well. Well, this approach is not easy, but it's pretty simple and interesting how it plays out. Almost like a courtroom scenario where we are always wanting to introduce reasonable doubt into our plans. And if the plan can overcome the reasons against it, it means our decision is a strong one. It can also be a useful approach to turning negative idea type people into fantastic assets for your company. Let me flesh it out and show you how. So in essence, what does this mean? Well, it means that if 9 men or women in a room agree, it's the duty of the 10th person to disagree. So there's several sources of background where you find it. One is in a pretty decent novel called World War Z by Max Brooks that was turned into a pretty average movie, but this was a theme in the movie. More to the point, in real life, actually, it's a concept that the Israeli Defense Force involved coming out of the Yom Kippur War 40 years ago, where they established the theme as a fail-safe, basically to review any and all major intelligence decisions, looking for alternative interpretations, if you like, and identify alternative scenarios and prepare for each. And finally, I think the original application can be found in the Roman Catholic Church. The term devil's advocate, which is really describing the 10th person, they're the individual with the assignment in the process of reviewing candidates for sainthood, and it is the role of the devil's advocate to do just that, to put personal feelings aside and to argue an opposing viewpoint. So in essence, the 10th person is an organizational approach or discipline that says we are going to build into our process a review and argument of the opposing viewpoint. And the limitation of this process is more in the culture and the mindset of the management team that is in that company or that type of company. And we have seen this concept applied in some of the largest organizations in the world. But personally, I've seen it, and I think the greatest value is with the smaller growth companies or even the startups. It's really a question of whether the management team has the discipline, has the humility, if you will, to build into the process a challenge of their thinking, of the facts of their decision making. You know, can they swallow their egos and get away from being surrounded by a bunch of fans or cheerleaders? So this approach fits anywhere. It's really all about your mindset and comfort level. As a concept, it was built for the business environment. One of the most successful that I've seen was actually a startup firm. And this company is today on most lists that you'll see of the fastest growing small firms in the country. But the founder was had a background in healthcare, and she surrounded herself with people who are comfortable being put in a challenging position, and were also comfortable stepping up and being part of this process. And I think it accelerated her growth because they put much more forethought into this vision and probably eliminated many mistakes. But more importantly, all small firms are going to make mistakes. They are much more prepared to deal with these objectively when the crisis arises. So that was one example I've seen with, and I've also seen larger firms. One of the largest building material companies in the country, they had the benefit of resources. They actually had to assign effectively a 10th person in their organizational structure who reviewed and came to the table with an alternative recommendation for each of the majority strategy decisions that the company made. So it goes back a little bit in time, but when the building materials industry, fell quite a bit, when housing startups fell, this company, they fared a little better compared to their competitors. their profits as a share of the industry actually grew because they were better positioned to deal with something that no one else had even considered as a possibility. So what can a business leader do to make sure they get this process right? Well, the easiest one, and it's actually fun when you're part of it, is for the business leader to build in what we call the most challenging step in their decision-making process. So whether you're deciding to make a major move into a new market, it could be a capital investment, it could even be for a significant key hire. The challenging step is when the team involved in the decision comes together and one individual on that decision-making team plays the 10th person. And the job is to look at the same set of facts and argue for an alternative scenario. And I think therefore what makes this really interesting and fun is to watch an organization evolve, because once an individual has to play the role of the 10th person, what I've observed is that the individual is much more open to being a challenge leader, and that makes for a healthy management environment, a very effective one. So maybe you should try it. It's not easy because people don't like to stand out on a limb and be the voice of doom, but my small tip is to bring together the most natural negative thinkers in the group and make them the 10th person. Turn their natural character, if you like, into a big asset for your company.